Stories are all about how life gets flipped, turned upside down. My name is Osadumebi, and every week I will tell you a short story written by a Nigerian writer or author. That's the long and short of it. So without much ado, this week's story is by Dumebi Ogboli, and it's titled Blaze. Now, this is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down. The opening lines to the theme song of one of my favorite sitcoms growing up, and it is so apt with regards to the unfolding story of my creative journey. For the last couple of years, I've been sharing pertinent parts of this unfolding story at the start of every new year. Telling this story is a selfish indulgence for me, but I hope you find it interesting and encouraging as you navigate your own adventures. I also tell this story for remembrance, posterity, and gratitude. Like some of us, I have a penchant for spending a disproportionate amount of time focusing on what has not quite gone to plan, or on what I am yet to do or achieve. Rebalancing is necessary. Taking a moment to pause, reflect, write, and share this story every year leaves me in awe of the ground I've covered and continue to cover on this particular path. In episode 14 from January 2023, titled Osadumebi, I tell the story of how this journey started. In episode 68 from January 2024, titled And, I continue the story relating strategies I used to stay afloat and keep creating. In episode 130, today's episode in January 2025, titled Blaze, I'll tell the story of growth and some significant wins which have and will continue to position me to live out the meaning of the word blaze over the next 12 months and beyond. I grew up in a house of readers, and one of the things I learned early on was to look up the meaning of words. If we were at home and I asked anyone older than me the meaning of a word I had read in a book or heard in a conversation or on TV, they would more than likely ask me to go look it up. I was shown how and then left to it. I can still see that dictionary, a hardback Oxford English dictionary with a green dust jacket. It was such a faff at first, going to haul that thick volume from the bookshelf. My small self, carefully sliding the glass door of the bookshelf open, my little hands grabbing the dictionary and pulling it out of its slot, then opening it up and reciting the letters of the alphabet in my head as I fast flipped through its leaves till I got to the section with the letter of the alphabet which started the word I wanted to look up. And then another round of alphabet recital as I slow flipped the pages to find the word. Back to the word blaze, now requiring only a Google search to reacquaint myself with its meaning. As a verb, it means to burn fiercely or brightly, to achieve something in an impressive manner, to mark out a path or route, to present or proclaim news in a prominent, typically sensational manner. Blaze. To mark out a path or route, to achieve something in an impressive manner. This podcast is in its third year. One episode a week, sometimes more when it is series week. The continued yeses from writers and authors, which I will never take for granted. The growing number of listeners from across the world. The cover refresh from last October, which I absolutely adore. The audio dramas in the pipeline getting ready to see the light of day. The support from Ijoma, my virtual assistant, without whom I most certainly would have closed up shop. The continuous learning and development, the restless nights where my mind buzzes non-stop and my head begs for sleep because a full day of IT project management awaits. 130 episodes and counting. Recently, someone complimented my consistency. In her words, "I have to say that I really admire your consistency. It is clear that you really believe in what you do." Staying consistent has not been easy. Some episodes are down to the wire, completed just before the cock crows on a Wednesday morning. But I really do believe in what I'm doing. The continuance of the podcast is key. It's a means to an end, an important product in an ecosystem which is gradually making its way from my mind to reality. Blaze. To mark out a path or route, to achieve something in an impressive manner, to present or proclaim news in a prominent, typically sensational manner. Funding. It has been and still is a concern and a challenge for me. Investing in yourself and learning a new skill doesn't have to be expensive, but it is not cheap either. As invaluable as it has been, there's only so much one can glean from YouTube, especially if you want to delve deeper and attain some degree of mastery. Courses and webinars soon add up. I keep a tally. Growth means evolution and change. Evolution and change almost always requires resources. Resources which have associated costs. Every firstborn will most likely be the most expensive child because of setup costs. It is no wonder that every child thereafter lives off hand-me-downs. Cousins and close friends, if in close proximity, also benefit from hand-me-downs. But you see that firstborn setup cost and subsequent maintenance costs. Sheesh. And then there's the ideating and execution, which requires time. And time is money. Be it your time or someone else's time. Bootstrapping until X was the plan. But oh my goodness. From the boot to the strap, and then the until has to run its course before you now come and find X. X that millions of school children have been looking for from time immemorial. But you see, Osadumebi, the meaning of my name, God helps me to live. It is so true for me. So in August 2024, after lots of research, I sat down and painstakingly crafted an application for the Developing Your Creative Practice Grant, DYCP, from the Arts Council England, ACE. I needed support with funds to enable me delve deeper into my craft and all it entails, and to enhance proficiency. I submitted the application before the deadline and had a 3-month wait to find out the outcome. As I mentioned earlier, I grew up in a house of readers. My earliest memories include books, and all through school, I always excelled in English and literature. My secondary school classmates always tease me about my use of English. The word discombobulated comes to mind. An inside joke, especially for my classmates. Anyway, if there's a string of words, printed or digital, I'll be drawn to read it. And as I read, I have a permanent red pen in my head, editing and critiquing. Whether they send me message or not, the red eleganza pen in my head is always on alert. Okay, context. In Nigerian secondary schools, I don't know that that is still the practice, but back in the day when I went to school, actually in primary and secondary schools, the way the teachers used to mark our books was with red pens. If your answer was correct, you would see a tick. If your answer was wrong, you would see an X. And your total was written in bold red ink, either a number or a letter. With my love for literature, listening to audiobooks was a natural progression. And then one blessed day, I listened to the audiobook of a Niger work of fiction. It was a book from an author I really like, but the narration didn't do it for me. The narrator's acting was brilliant. I was immersed in a different world. But the pronunciation of the Nigerian names and places was jarring, marring the overall listening experience. Long story short, that encounter was one of the reasons I decided to become a voiceover actor. I wanted to play a part in ensuring authentic representation of Nigerian accents, dialects, and cultural nuances in audiobook narrations, and thereby contribute to accurate and respectful storytelling. I want to achieve this purpose working with independent writers, authors, and studios. But I realize a crossover would be beneficial all round in the long run. So I started seeking out and applying for opportunities to get into mainstream audiobook narration. So, circling back to August. While I was painstakingly crafting the application for the DYCP grant, I was also laboring over applications for a couple of significant narrating opportunities. All 3 applications were completed and submitted in August. And then the wait. In September, I got a no from one of the narrating opportunities. I was bummed but not shaken. They were my second choice, a backup plan. On the 6th of November, I got an email from ACE indicating a decision letter was available on their portal. I logged in, found the letter, clicked on it, and it opened. I began to read, and my vision went blurry. I took off my glasses, wiped the tears, and continued reading. I had been awarded the grant. Only God knows how long I sat at my desk in stunned silence. Much needed respite from bootstrapping, at least for my professional development. It is important to mention that at the point I got news of the ACE grant, I had been out of work as an IT project manager for 7 months, and it was not for want of applying for jobs. My reserves were dangerously low, and I was living as lean as possible. I paused the services of my virtual assistant and went into overdrive. Talk about living on a prayer. But I kept creating. In that 7 months, I completed my second audiobook, titled When Night Falls by Lisa O'Hara. It's a personal tale of guilt, love, and grief, written by a dear friend. It's available on Audible and Apple Books. I'll put links in the episode description. In that 7 months, in collaboration with Somtochukwu Benedict Ezioha, a writer whose work I admire, and I have featured a couple of his stories on this podcast, we launched a faceless YouTube channel called Niger Storyscapes. It's a project we aim to grow to include other Nigerian writers and voiceovers. I'll put links in the bio as well. That required more learning and more risk-taking, as our initial foray is DIY, so we are as cost-effective as possible. In that 7 months, I did not miss an episode of this podcast, and I cannot even begin to recount to you how many other things I kept doing in that 7-month period, hoping and believing. Less than a week after the notification from ACE, I got an email about the second significant narrating opportunity I had applied for, the one I really wanted. I had been shortlisted for an interview, which I was ecstatic about. But I came off the Zoom interview deflated by my performance. In my estimation, I did not turn up with my A game. I didn't even think that I had turned up with my B game. I cried, prayed, and then cried some more. Geez, I had to constantly shake off a dark cloud as I waited for the outcome, hoping and praying. Fast forward a few weeks, and Osadumebi, God continues to help me to live. I cannot say any more than I have already said, but rest assured, you will get the inside scoop once an official announcement is made. Needless to say, 2025 is set to blaze. Paths and routes have been marked out, and they are mine to burn through fiercely and brightly. They are mine to continue to achieve things in an impressive manner. They are mine to present and proclaim in a prominent and sensational manner. Blaze. This is my story. Well, a small part of it. If you don't already know, I'm Osadumebi, but everyone calls me Dumebi. I work as a project management professional during the week from 9 to 5, and at every other time, it feels like, I'm a voiceover actor who helps Nigerian writers and authors transform their written work to audio and make it available to a wider audience through audiobook and podcast streaming platforms. So, if you've got a story you would like to be featured on this podcast, or a published book you want to make into an audiobook, I would love to hear from you. Send an email to info@osadumebi.com or contact me at Osadumebi on either Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or X. I look forward to collaborating with you. And if you've enjoyed this week's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with one person you know will enjoy listening. Tell them that stories are a good escape for a few minutes each week.